Hi everybody, and welcome to EDU 343, educating students with low incidence disabilities. At least that's what I like to title the course, rather than severe and profound. The ideas of severe and profound really kind of rankle me as an inclusionist, someone who believes that everyone can be included in a regular education, general education environment. And that idea of severe and profound and the kind of depth of disability that that implies makes educational success sound somewhat impossible, which it's not. As we'll talk about in the course, your ability to observe, your ability to assess, your ability to plan, your ability to implement your plans, and your ability to reflect on their success, again, through observation and assessment. That's kind of the loop that we've talked about and developed as teachers and in our conversations in other classes. Those kinds of ideas are applicable to students with low incidence disabilities. I call them low incidence disabilities because they happen very rarely in the population. For the most part, for the disabilities that we'll be talking about in this course, less than 1%. And it's important for you to know about those students who may have low incidence disabilities with whom you could be working in your classes, because in many ways, the strategies, the kinds of technologies, the different methods, the adaptations and the modifications that you'll be putting in place as teachers are different for the most part from those students who have disabilities that are less profound and often less visible than they are in students with these low incidence disabilities. So welcome. Keep those ideas of inclusion in mind, because our conversations and our work in this course, all of that's going to be primarily focused on how these students are going to work in the general education curriculum. And it's important to think about inclusion from another perspective as well. We know, for example, that the whole pragmatic philosophy of John Dewey indicates that school is not a preparation, is not a something outside of life or necessarily a preparation for life beyond school. It really is life. And as a result, students who have low incidence disabilities need to have a seat at the table. And those students who are more neurotypical need to be part of the interaction that takes place with these students, so that eventually the kinds of barriers that exist in the culture and that exist in the society for students with low incidence disabilities, or really students with any disabilities, can be removed and done away with as obstacles, and will look at all individuals as being capable and worthy of being part of the culture, part of the society, and be seen as contributing to that culture and that society in a very real way. So take seriously the axiom, nothing about us without us. Your advocacy as teachers, your creativity as teachers to be able to have these students access the general education curriculum, access the kinds of opportunities that are provided in a general education curriculum, is going to be key for your success, I think, as special education teachers. So welcome, and those are just some things to keep in mind as we go forward in this introduction. Couple of things about the structure of the course. From week to week, if you look at the syllabus, you'll see that the kinds of assignments that are required week to week are pretty routine and pretty regular. You will have discussions that I will ask you to post to a prompt and also post to your colleagues. So you'll have 2 entries for each of those discussions week after week. That's one thing that you'll be responsible for doing, and you'll see that in the syllabus and sort of watch that unfold as our Moodle pages open up. The other thing that's also going to be included on a week-to-week basis starting in week 2 are case studies that will hopefully elaborate some of the things that you're going to be reading about and thinking about in terms of the text that I had you purchase, the Brown, McDonald, and Snell text from 2020. And I'm going to have you look at those case studies, think about those case studies, and submit a 2-page paper on each of those case studies so that we keep that idea of application in mind. How do we apply what we're reading in the text and what we're thinking about in the course to actual student experiences so that our teaching can develop as a result? So discussions and case studies on a weekly basis are going to be important places in the syllabus that you'll want to keep up and be part of on a regular basis. So make sure you're doing that week in and week out. The other assignments in the course, a larger case study that I'm going to ask you to complete on a Drive student. So Amy Cooper, who is now the site supervisor for Drive, is the person who's responsible for making sure that parents give us access to student plans, student IEPs, and an opportunity to work with these students directly in class. So hopefully within the first couple of weeks in the course, we'll be able to establish those relationships. You will be provided access to a student in the Drive program with whom you're going to work on a regular basis, and you're going to fashion a case study based on the information you get from observing that student, from looking at their IEP, from seeing different plans, from assessing, planning, and observing your student. And that case study will allow you, again, to have that application that's so vital to really understanding how the course content relates to the real world. There will also be a video summary that I'm going to ask you to upload at the very end of the course in the last week. The video summary is really a reflective summary of the things you've learned in the course, the kinds of ways you've developed, and what kinds of commitments you can make as a professional to working with these kinds of students, in the sense of how can you take what you've learned and have that affect how you can work well with students with low incidence disabilities. So that's going to be another assignment in the course. The last thing that I'm going to have you begin to work on almost immediately, and there's information in the syllabus about this, a little more detail, is a toolbox of accommodations, modifications, and strategies that you can use with students with low incidence disabilities. There are some that are available in the textbook that you might want to use. There are obviously many available online that I'd also ask you to kind of take a look at some of those resources and determine for yourselves whether or not those resources will be helpful and to whom. And as I mentioned, the details for that are also in the syllabus that I'm going to ask you to take a look at in week 1. So I think that's it for the introduction. If you have any questions, always the best way to get a hold of me is via email. We'll have announcements through the Moodle page as well on a weekly basis that kind of elaborate a little bit on what we're going to be doing for that week. One other thing that I might mention that I do talk about a little bit in the syllabus also is the reading is extensive. It's pretty long. There is a lot of information to digest in that particular book. What I'm going to try to offer are weekly reading guides of different sorts, PowerPoints and videos and text documents that will be designed to help you get through those chapters, highlight specific areas on which you need to focus, and hopefully help your understanding of the overall content of the course. So that's going to be another weekly feature and regular feature of our work together. So thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. And I look forward to moving into week one with you and talking a little bit more about some of the educational foundations for working with students who have low incidence disabilities and are differently abled with low incidence disabilities. And I look forward to your responses and your work in the course. So thanks a lot, and take care. I'll be seeing you very soon.